I haven't heard a good morality versus justice debate in a while.
Have you? We should just have a values debate.
LD is a values debate.
Yeah, exactly.
You're correct on that. Garbage.
Who?
I believe in it.
Alright, I'm good.
Yeah, everyone good?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Go for it.
Alright. Oh, wait.
Go.
All that random coaching, you're still not ready.
Morgan, you know Garber said LD was values debate?
That's true, sort of.
Did you know Garber paid for the RBI?
Yeah, I'm very upset about it.
Go ahead, Ryan, we're good.
I value justice. Morality is based on response to problems in the world where justice focuses on resolving material conditions of mind. Path is 16. A pure inquiry about injustice began with destination where the injustices are. Injustices events of concrete people. We need to start by pointing out describing problem experiences that theoretical accounts is proof theoretically justice destructive matter. One must be careful that the subject matter Williams will not in favor of one's theory. Cognitive policies is independent, neutral, respect complete diagnosis. Rectify and improve any that return to the concrete problem. Make problem situations are methodological starting place and point to cures to address unique circumstances. And ideal theory is incapable of prescribing action or rule the rights of the ethical theories may identify problems that will never resolve the mills not. List of market ideas or circumstances I think carbon remedy injustice. Ideal represents a goal looking at a timeline to no acts without random oppressive social order. The ideal is no history of injustice. All we need is scope to discrimination. Make sure injustice not enter this produce a race-free policy. How can this ideal simply do the merits of policy and to correct for white supremacy? It cannot. I do think the name sustain when society says injustice not to be able to do if unjust society wants to correct injustice. What's required is not until this starts without the injustice trying to apply disadvantage government actions, not the cool, not discrimination, especially when there are no blacks being discriminated against. What's ideal call for is not what's ideal call for under not under circumstances. Thus the standard is mitigating oppression. Thus the plan in the Republic of the Philippines, the public's right to know ought to be valued above the right to privacy of candidates for public office. Cruz and Mendoza 14. In the Philippines, the right of people to information on parameters public is enshrined in the Constitution. The Philippine Supreme Court ruled that the right to access public information is enforced even without enabling the law time and again government offices that seem to deny requests for information from the public without clear grounds access to asset and disclosure statements of public officials. The mandate of the law has been denied on a number of occasions. The boundaries have been clearly defining access to claiming for Philippine access to information law. Advantage one is the war on drugs. Freedom of information laws or FOI laws in the Philippines are inadequate, not properly enforced use of government tools for surveillance, incentive tool for government accountability, KNR 17. Right to information was to the Philippine Constitution 30 years ago. Legislatively implemented law due to sign the executive order to stop private safeguards that can be rescinded anytime in theory. Operationalizes the constitutional right to information. Request for information only process proof of identification is provided. FOI should be a vehicle for non-medical mechanism of government to spy on the addresses, numbers, and ID information that public Philippine government exhibits. Openness only provides data is politically convenient. Due to terrorists not serious about information transparency. Fight for the real FOI law continues. And government officials crack down on public to hide information. They whitewash that information, perpetuate the war on drugs. Kind 2A. Due to the carry out war on drugs resulting in deaths of over 12,000 killings, right was part of a government disinformation to flag the growing evidence of extrajudicial execution that senior government officials instigated ignores evidence of police involvement linked to the drug with De La Rosa, to dismiss calls for independent investigation, then pardons the police implicating new unlawful killings, and the administration whitewashes culpability, government to help with public pressure to provide accountability by subject critics of government to withering harassment, government attack on domestic media, outlets to shut down media platforms and news channels, and the public's right to investigate government accountability that controls and turn linked to a laundry list of impacts, Cruz and Mendoza 14. The right to information laws mandate people access to help information, help the government. The laws have been the most successful active the government officials are the interests of public of Bulgaria. Enacted FOI law in 2000, private media involved discussion of energy projects and strategy meetings between public those to make records of the transparency fundamental eradicating corruption. The UK newly enforced FOI Act was tested by journalistic documentation, access to travel expenses with British Parliament, and a comprehensive list of published disclosure, exposed cases that are found to trigger resignation. Key government officials filing the cases sanctions and strict independent bodies created to oversee expenses. The Philippine needs a freedom of information law. Mexico's FOI law in 2002 and invoked a case of enforced killing after Indonesia, enacted FOI mining acts to be filed with case against public officials for allowing mining possession of results in accidental deaths. Health and safety are instances where information cannot be easily shared as disclosure endangerizing people protecting individual rights. And the Philippines war on drugs is modern-day state-sanctioned violence that perpetuates disease, terrorism, crime, and corruption. Fell that Brown 17. Due to these war on drugs, amounts of state sanction, murder, trending, social fabric, and rule of law, manifest people accused of drug dealing were killed in a lacking accountability. Watch list and the factual hit list. Police officers were killing 97% of drug suspects and encouraged judicial killings. No systematic investigation taking place. Mass incarceration underway, and million users surrendered out of fear of being killed. Those who challenged to they're accused of trafficking charges, stigmatizing drug use, exacerbating diseases such as HIV, AIDS, mass incarceration, and dangerous lines between terrorists and criminals. People who end up in overcrowded prisons will remain addicted to drugs, hunting down level of push, so increase organized crime, intensify corruption, more powerful drug traffickers emerge, corrupt government officials, direct law enforcement against police and become drug peoples, advantage to its economic development. Philippines economy is on the surge right now, but more vulnerabilities are rising. High daring 630. The Philippines are richest economic rights of us in the region, and 2 years into the the Philippine economy is once again advancing in vulnerability, inflationary upsurge, something currency widening deficit, and dramatic decline in foreign investment. Determined will have to demonstrate greater policy predictability. Drug saw a 90% drop in the new investment pledges. It will take more than plus adjustment to restore frayed confidence Philippines economy's momentum might peter out. And foreign investors are backing out of the Philippines. Their key concerns perception of government corruption, AP 75. Duterte has taken pride in fighting 2,000 officials with an anti-corruption drive up at the court, having rehired corruption means a barrier to trade investment in the Philippines. Government investors lose the anti-corruption institutions. Frankly, they all accuse corruption gone unpunished. Foreign investors, you don't care about internal politics, you just want to know people investigate governments like a merry-go-round of appointments and abuse. Corruption remains pervasive and ranks highly in foreign investor concerns in the country. And increasing public information increases government transparency and public anti-corruption movements. India approves. Agrawal 12. The RTI Act was promulgated to print and transparency since it used a law very effective. No other law gives citizens so much power to question anti-public authority, root out corruption, and the culture of secrecy of government affairs for reform and transparency. Growing on people using the RTI to fight corruption, bring about policy changes. Study supports the power of RTI, a literature of anti-corruption fields to recognize social movements of surface and corruption. And the stage is well set for foreign investment to trace corruption is stopping and foreign investment promotes domestic infrastructure and economic growth. OBG 17. More foreign investment bring improved technology and innovation proposed for a broader part of strategy to liberalize the economic contractor are seen as key parties of the government plans building to upgrade roads and urban system administration targeted infrastructure needs increasing foreign academics and universities will improve education liberalization drives the Philippines more competitive despite challenges plans to liberalize the economy generate free responsible businesses and sustainable growth is key to solve poverty, disease, and oppression. GFID08. Growth can generate virtuous cycles of prosperity to improve governance, advance human societies, development, remove and generate inequalities, increase financial inclusion, new technology offer leapfrogging possibilities, science offers better prospects across productive and service sectors. A flagship study 14 countries found that poverty fell in 11 countries that experienced significant growth. Growth generates job opportunities and strong demand for labor freedoms are strongly associated with improvements in living standards. Growth is essential government providing public services which directly benefit the poor. Growth rates human income support people ability to pay for activities and goods that improve health and education, higher levels of income, reduce infant mortality, disease, and oppression.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Sounds good. Right to know what?
Right to know in terms of like government information and
What does that
corruption. So like we'll like defend whatever you prove is extended towards the right to know in terms of like cards or any normal
Okay,
means
sounds good.
evidence.
The next question I have is that what do Filipino people not know now about Duterte that they could know underneath the plan
Well-
that would cause them to like vote Duterte out of office?
Yeah, sure. So the first tenet of solvency in terms of like what voters want to know and should know is in terms of the drug war, right? So currently in terms of 2019, like upcoming senatorial election where like half of the Senate in the Philippines is basically up for re-election, we argue that these voters can and should know about the involvements in the drug war policies, their
Okay.
involvement in
What
corruption,
right to
asset and disclosure
wait, what right to
statements.
privacy do the candidates have or the members of Congress have to like their stance on the drug war?
Yeah, sure. So like in terms of like hiding information, right, the government and these officials are treating this as a very like personal issue. Their argument is that like, you know, we have to look at things through like a personal perspective, whereby like my personal connection in terms of like other candidates or
So
my
wait, so
policy
to clarify,
disclosures
your
are not
claim
actually
is that Congress people in the Philippines have a right to privacy to how they voted on bills and what they've supported?
No, that's not necessarily the argument. In fact, if you look at the actual kind 2A evidence, it talks about how like senior officials right now in terms of the connections that they have, especially with like other candidates or other government officials who are propagating the drug war, for instance, will be an example.
My question
Argument is that
I am not
in terms
contesting that they might be hiding these things. I'm asking what right to privacy to these things do you think they have?
Yeah, sure. So like our evidence talks about how like in terms of like evidence of police
Okay,
involvement.
please
or
point
even
me
in-
to the word privacy or right to privacy in this kind card.
Well, I understand, like, it doesn't, like, you will not find much topic evidence that's just about, like, privacy in that context.
Well,
Most
you
of the
would if you
average
read an
talk
app about a
about
country that
corruption,
really
as well as
has
that
sense.
context, right? But the card specifically does talk about how in terms of, like, government disinformation,
Okay, so
growing
you don't have a card that
evidence,
says
and
right to
actual
privacy.
instigation.
That's fine. The econ advantage.
That's not what I said,
Investors
but,
back
yeah.
out because of investors back out because of corruption. Which investors?
Sure, so, like, the AP evidence talks about how investors from, like, you know, the China, I think.
The
it also
China?
talks about Japan.
Can you point me to the China and the Japan in the
China and the
evidence?
Japan.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's just China and Japan.
Well, that's not what you
my
said,
guess.
but whatever. Can you send? Okay, we'll stop this. Can you point me to China and Japan in the card?
Yeah, it's, I don't think it's in this card,
Uh-huh.
but it does talk about like prior to when I was like, I think when my teammate was cutting it, like the foreign investors right now that are backing it include things like from abroad, right?
So
like,
to clarify, your answer to the question, which evidence you have about investors backing out, is a Myers 18 card that you haven't read, or Rye.
Myers.
I don't know.
well, no, like our argument is very clearly that like if you look at a aggregative stance, right, 90% of investments.
What does
are
aggregative
decreases.
stance mean?
Yeah, sure, like the Hydarian evidence talks about how like a 90% drop in new investment pledges decreases overall. So like it talks about South Korea, it names Asia, it names like Philippines, it
Are
even
you
names
certain that these things are in here? Alright,
yeah,
that's fine.
like read the Hydarian
5.
card.
Drug war,
It
econ.
says South Korea's new investment pledges.
Did you say 5?
I said 5.
Okay.
Hang on, I didn't make two more.
That's not
I refuse to make my default thing have more than 3 off pages. I'll never change.
The F is just very small, I apologize.
What?
And it's not T, but that's really
Alright, I'm ready.
I have not emailed it. It is currently being loaded up to the...
You break my computer, you're paying for it.
I thought you were talking to me, and it was like a joke about how many offs there are, and I was just like very confused. Sweet.
Did you just send it?
Yeah, I sent it. 5, 4 on drugs, con.
Why is it the BZ?
Because you're the BZ. I don't understand why there's confusion about this.
Just like capitalism.
It's a sign of respect, trust me.
Alright, I'll take it for what you say.
You good?
Hold on.
Put sunglasses.
Yeah, I can't see.
Okay, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes. Sweet. Topicality, the F may not specify democracy. A is an indefinite article that modifies democracy in the resolution. That means you have to prove the resolution is true in a vacuum, not a particular instance. CCC. The article A are indefinite articles used for something in a less specific manner. A beagle makes a great hunting dog that indefinite parameter refers to all members that cause violation. They specify the Philippines limits. Specifying a democracy offers a huge explosion of the topics and they have permutations over the 19 or 57 countries depending on their definition of democracy. Limits explodes. Neck pride press on reciprocal lines in debate where the affirmative is always ahead. Just skip the next analytic. Fairness is a voting issue because debates again that needs rules to function and you should endorse. You should not put over positions that are unfair. Drop the debate or topicality frames are one issue. You should never enter the debate. Competing interpretations on topicality. We should decide the best norm for how the topic functions, and you can't be halfway topical. No RBIs. 1, 2 in our strategy. If the 2 in our season out of substance, you do able to take it. 2, you don't get a cookie for proving that you're topical because it's a stock issue in the affirmative burden. It's not always one area theory because any abuse on substance was done because the affirmative was not topical. Lastly, you can't weigh the case 8.5 they preclude me from substantive engagement with the one to see that obviously with the case it means you can't cross-apply case impacts or arguments to the other case since we debt your ability. 3 the first says B point arguments can intrinsically cause violence because those arguments are not perpetuating the Filipino drug war in the first place. Next off. HIV bill patches now Duterte signatures the last turtle glower 18 a new bill treatment of prevention will release 20-year-old Philippines aid. The Senate and the House ratified the bill. It's not just waiting for President Rodrigo Duterte's signature. Duterte won't support solid public disclosure, particularly attacks on himself. He'll derail laws and punish Congress if he has to. PDI 18. Duterte began adjusting his section on the bill passage despite that it be nominated by his allies and virtually through the hell rather the first congressional supermajority working the law would lay down for public disclosure. Duterte decided to issue an executive order. Duterte puts up a fight. There one EC evidence. Cañares 17 Duterte one of these activists with the F5. Oh, he's not serious about government transparency. A hard fight with real F5 with Alex continues. Duterte has gone hardline and derailed bills before empirics are on our side. Competitor 18. Of the 5 of 18 bills he prioritized pass, the president signed internet accessing accountability passport. Duterte another 5 months society ease of doing business. After Duterte made hardline statements on HD fuel songs about lack of lobbying. Duterte target the Senate and the House for reviews instructed. Bills key to solve the HIV crisis. Glower 18. The new law clarifies the role of government bodies to give them the power to tackle the crisis and install national level plan multi-race strategy to tackle the epidemic. Human rights based rules show the dignity of the people living in the HIV laws show the age-related restriction, HIV testing, tackle discriminating healthcare institutions, shows government funding for programs that the international donors produce it. The law carries free HIV treating including the right to treat HIV infections. That outweighs Glower 18, the Philippines HIV crisis, one of the worst in the world, with a 147% increase in new infections in 2010. Next off is the medical pick. In the Republic of the Philippines, the public's right to know ought to be valued above the right to privacy of candidates for public office, except for medical privacy, which ought not be disclosed. Duterte carved out a medical exemption. They say the plan closes the exemption. It means it competes Mendez. 18. Duterte issued a memorandum ordering creating New Jersey freedom of information except for policy committee member on circular coordinating officers after public ask of the president's Institute of Health have underwent medical procedure. Colonoscopy and endoscopy in relation to Barrett's disease. It competes consensus of literature strive for 6 candidates are required to waive their rights to medical privacy concerning very specific set of medical conditions. Other steps are moral duty to disclose the honest 2000 based on the principle that those who govern do so with only consent of the governed. Privacy is key to healthy candidates. Gurgis 16 patients need to come to the doctor. Many embarrassing details. Imagine if they believe someone can learn this. One going to cancer about STD tell their doctor this may put others to media. It's really speculation of doctors many candidates on this face through journals reverse patients need to know they can trust their doctor with anything and give the best medical advice for reducing that patient with certain disease should not work certain jobs. Skip the next card. And the next 2 cards, picks are key to real-world education, friends, and 7. Knowledge generated by debate, people really cartoon, artificial, I could run laws, arguments about a lot of the empirical factual basis when seeing in my brain technical issues and understanding how the fine points will solve. Missing this stuff that really determines whether policies or successful details pretty much get left on debates when setting out a non-proliferation rule. What is the workers on deciding what residential facilities allocate the money to? Knowing the specific people with regard to nuclear decision, debate, and variety, the way meaningful engage in the process, how to make this debate like technical policy world narrow, quick space, or vital. The topic which I best converse is the design of emissions trading schemes with the literature received the prevalence of upstream, downstream, auction time, to avoid narrow debate, the real that discussion. People's attention with fairness is one of the most valuable things about adapting on circumstances, runs conditional CPs get better. You've got to react and deal with tough situations. Allow the most intellectually invigorated parts of the hardest and most unfair. One of your theories, stupid theories are affirmative. 8 point, the 2 hours overcover substance and overcover theory since they get the collapse and persuasive advantage of 3 minutes 2 hour B point. The response to the counterintuitive B, which was one of our theory necessitates interventions, implications. 8 point, dropping the argument minimizes the chances the round is decided unfairly. B point, intervention. If intervention will happen on theory debates and judges should intervene in a way that decreases the bad nature of LD theory. Next off. Interpretation democracy means full democracy. Channel at 18. The EU interrelations considered control democracies are 19. Violation of the Philippines is ranked in the 50s. Limit 1 is limits over anything besides anything besides full democracies, including the topics over 150 nations, meaning the affirmative can defend any country and subset of instances within the country, i.e. tax returns, campaign finance, health records, as well actors who must expose the next prepper and destroys under simple lines of radio. The affirmative is all by head. Second is topically full democracies are the most germane to the value question of the topic. They can always pick a backsliding democracy which skews negative ground. Check a lot. 18. Full democracy refers to a system where all democratic principles are upheld. Nation practical democracy of freedom and civil liberties as the executive, judiciary, independent, and the opposite media are respected. Next off. The provincial Sonic or polygons of the Republic of the Philippines such value the right to know about the right to privacy of the candidates for public office. Their solvency evidence says it's the federal government, which they establish in FOI, although one province of the Philippines already has itself the Manila Times. 18. The Sonic or one of the must abate released studently file the freedom of information order that the ordinance upholds the right of the people to information about the public concern. The FOI with student policy full of public disclosure of the case. On the top of the plan, they have no inherency because the plan text suggests that they value the right to know, but the evidence already says the Supreme Court affirmed this right, which means even if the law is inherent, the right of the plan is not inherent in the first place. The war on drugs advantage post-plan, Duterte creates a committee to put holes in it. Placido 18. Duterte has ordered the creation of a committee. There were few exceptions to the FOI executive order issue more than 2 years. Duterte takes the policy committee periodically update the list of FOI exceptions probably affect any change. It needs a large year's periods. Duterte popularity is up. Drug war is why. Caldwell 18. Government leaders are corrupting, not be trusted. Duterte consensus. May 16 to election to President's proof it has never been far from 80%. His drug war is an important element of his popularity. Voters approve the drug war 77 to 14. They have no evidence that says that voters will vote Duterte out of office because of the drug war. Voters don't like the drug war in the first place. They love it. The only team with evidence on this round is the one in C, which means the one in C has no solvency. The line bound their evidence, their kind evidence that they say says that politicians hide this. First, there's no right to privacy to determine how you voted on like the drug war, which means the plan doesn't solve any of their offense. Second, this says that they're using rhetoric to like sanitize the drug war, but that doesn't mean they're hiding anything under the right to privacy. Their Cruz and Mendoza evidence is not about candidates. It's about an FIO law that's talking about government official in general. But the plan says they go for candidates for public office, which does not apply to government information like how many people they're killing, because it's about the right to privacy of the candidates, which like how many the candidates didn't kill people themselves. They like ordered police officers to do it. Now, their impact evidence ties multiple all causes. First is a hit list that Duterte has, which they cannot solve. Second is investigate. They call for investigation, like legal investigation, like police officers. Now, the econ advantage. Investment is up. That's a Euro 18 project approved by the Board of Investment rose 17% in 9 months. It's over their country. Top trade officials had trade sector info. I Chairman Ramon Lopez investment register. The agency read 454 billion from 381 billion. Investments for pure projects grew by 49%. The Philippine economy is stronger and set to grow. Arab News 10-4. The Philippine economy is project grows 6.5%, 6.7 in 920, and 6.6 2020. Despite slowdown, government expenditure should provide momentum in early 2019 for our consumption remain strong. The line by line, their Hungarian 630 evidence is about alt sides tax measures as an alt cause to stagnating growth, which means if they win their advantage or this evidence there is an all culture. They don't solve the AP 7875 evidence. It says the U.S. official says it's hard to make trade-offs with the Philippines because of the drug war, but they probably just don't want to anyway because of things like America First policy doesn't cite any sort of investment that's actually backed out there. Agarwal 12 evidence about social movements. One, India is not the same as the Philippines. They obviously don't have a drug war that murders like thousands of people, which obviously makes movements a little harder to do. Second, it's not about candidates because it's about the government in general. Their last OEG evidence does not say Duterte anywhere in it, which means the stage is not set, but Duterte is backing out. Their evidence is garbage on the question of whether they solve the event, and they run no solvency in the first place. Cross 6. This is my stand.
Oh shit. Might be.
Wow. Language. Read paradigms.
Everyone good?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Status of the condo plans?
Condo.
Both condo?
Yep.
Cool. Let's talk about this DSAD. With the HIV bill right now, yeah.
Where is it right now?
The HIV bill right now, in terms of that, how does the plan prevent it from passing?
Duterte like backlashes and doesn't sign it.
Yeah, I understand, but like in terms of like why the plan uniquely triggers that, where have you indicated like a specific link?
I've cited one is the evidence that says Duterte fights. I've cited an piece of evidence that says
The
heroes
Canaris
attacked.
card doesn't draw a direct link between Duterte Duterte and the hard fight itself.
Well, that's because it's from the
It's
1AC
about-
and your evidence isn't fantastic, but the other pieces of link evidence do articulate that Duterte likes to derail bills when he's mad, and the 1AC is a stance against Duterte in the first place, which means every piece of solvency you win is a link to the dissent.
Okay, so in terms of this bill itself, what other issues are currently happening in the Philippine legislature?
That doesn't matter actually because the bill has passed both chambers of the legislature, and all it's waiting on is Duterte's signature, which is the link.
Okay, cool. So in terms of the impact itself, with the HIV crisis, how does the law actually clarify these issues? Especially
Clarify
given the
the
drug
issues.
war and the alt causes to
Okay,
HIV.
the new law clarifies the roles of government bodies and given the power to tackle the crisis. Here's what it does. Institutionalize the national level plan with a multi-year strategy. It's human rights based. It removes age-related restrictions to HIV testing and tackle discrimination. It ensures government fundings for a program currently at risk as international
Okay,
donor
if
food
it's so
states.
good,
And
why
wait,
hasn't it already passed?
because Duterte has not signed it. Wait, last impact is really important. It guarantees
that's
free
fine.
HIV treatment, including medicines to treat
good.
HIV-related
I
infections.
think I understand it, is that it's fine.
Oh, no,
Let's
that
talk
impact
about.
was like really nice.
Alright, that's fine. Let's talk about the medical exemption. Sorry, not the medical exemption, the provincial pick that you read.
Mhm.
In terms of that, like, what is the net benefit?
The dissent.
Sure,
It's not
so
a pig,
how
by
does-
the way.
how
It's
does
like
that-
it's the Philippine states counterplan. They're just called provinces, and the Sangguniang Panlawigans are like the local legislatures.
Okay, so how does that like actually, in terms of like full public disclosure, result in the specific drug war policies that everyone is criticizing?
Drug war policies manifest themselves with local candidates and local officials as well. For example, like police officers, those candidates, like police commissioners, etc. So people have more say in their local politics, which means it solves a substantial portion of the money.
Okay, so with these local politics then, like, if that is the case, what interactions exist between the local politics and Duterte himself?
I don't know all of the interactions, but Duterte's sort of agenda for being tough on drugs is translated into local provinces, like also carrying that out.
Okay,
Obviously
that's fine.
Yeah.
I do want to talk specifically about your definition with A. In terms of the indefinite article, this is simply about like indefinite articles in general. Like, where does it apply to like A plus a singular?
A beagle makes a great hunting dog is singular, but it refers to beagles in general. It's actually about A plus a singular.
Yeah, so if that's like a general example of one such instance, then why isn't that a specific argument?
What? No. The argument is that
It seems to be a specific instance that proves the.
Yo,
Okay, that
yeah,
would be
the same order. That's not how grammar works. If a grammatical function operates,
It doesn't.
can I answer? If the function of the indefinite A operates that way in the sentence with the same construction as the resolution,
Okay.
then we would say independently. Other examples, like if I say a person ought not to kill, I do not mean like you ought not to kill. I mean like people in general ought not to
Thank
kill.
you. Stop starting.
Values.
Real quick, what's this first justification for why there's no FBI?
The first one
Yeah.
was that you don't get a cookie for being topical.
Okay.
Or no, sorry, the first one was the two are needs and out on substance. The second one was you don't get a cookie for being topical.
Okay.
Already decided to go for the yeah. Marshall, real quick, did I read the Arab news evidence on the second advantage?
You did.
I did? Okay, thanks.
I'm not sure I can answer as a judge.
Oh, my bad. I would have asked Brian. Are you running prep, by the way? I forgot to start.
Yeah, I know. 45 seconds.
Did you use 4?
What?
Did you use 4 minutes?
No, I have 45 seconds.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
Total 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Some
Unless you want
in
to
4.
total 5.
No, we're good. It's just been inconsistent throughout.
You're good.
Thanks.
I'm actually not reading that many cards. Do you mind if I just like put the cards in the email and stuff?
Body of the email? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I swear, if I get like 9 in the body.
Actually, it's not copy and pasting the format itself, so I'm
Just put them in the document.
Yeah.
You're good. You're
Give me
good.
a second.
No worries.
You do want the counter curves, right?
Please.
Yeah, that's a pretty ease. Okay, saved, sent. I'm a mess. That's all.
Alright, what's the order?
It's gonna be the first T shell,
TA,
shell,
T democracy.
and then case,
In which advantages in order?
second advantage.
So just the econ advantage?
Well, I'll do some like work at the top, obviously, but yeah.
Okay.
And then the 2 counter plans.
In which order?
The states counter plan first, essentially the states,
Yeah.
the other pick, and then the politics is that.
Sick.
Let me know
States,
if ever
how
gets adopted.
Americentric of you.
It was a critique
CT
link
should have
right
taught you
there.
better.
Yeah, okay,
This
yeah,
was
cool.
their whole debate. Okay. I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay. Has anyone gotten it?
It took a little bit the first time, don't worry about it. We'll see.
Let me double check that it's sent. Should be. Unless the Wi-Fi is just
Yeah, I think that's
like
it.
that.
Oh wait. I think I just got it.
Okay.
Give me a second. I got it. Can you repeat the order?
Yeah, it's gonna be the 2 T shells in order, and then the case proper, and then the province counter plan, the pick, and then the HRB decide.
Alright, I'm ready.
Everyone good? Alright. I mean, the Philippines is the only democracy in the world that prioritizes privacy with the right. They have a right to counter-interpret this proves no new to or violations. They counter-interpret and reduce the possibility of theory arguments to the last piece. Counter-interpret the app may only defend a single democracy provider to the right to know every candidate's privacy. Their definitions account for single singular noun, democracy, bird. A plus singular to computers, machines, generic structure refers to individual instances of the whole group. Use is limited to declassified consoles. Their options can only choose from one, not a permutation function of checks that there won't be limit. And every single we need more actions to prioritize the right to know our offense. One, they overlook the literally only one app and it's just same genetic advantage everyone. Bright hours most of the learning to be cursed and research that either around top education is best that way. Second, their term says with counter words we just read a disorder picked and rating stocks. Non-use their limits because they just app gets stuck to defending against tiny things that are infinite generic dis as third linear apply to specific absolute critical thinking that apply mathematical records pick calculated NC tax returns to other generic so variety of situations that helps you think on your fear. Reasonable and bright line of link of term disagree in terms of the premium running through any marginal advantage to track themselves to also answer the arguments that infinitely aggressive race the absurd rather than the race to a bottom of the legit range of inter experiment operate all have axes of A force of defend their vision of A and B if I'm really out of use they should just win their interpretation get into discussions on well the debate's not a question of avoiding for avoiding T but rather a question of how we actually get different models which is a T debate. Democracy. I mean, the Philippines is democracy. There's always going to be a full democracy, which means that either way it's still a question of interpretation. A counter-interpretation democracy means countries that are identified as either full or flawed democracy on the EI use the list of democracies preferring counter-interpretation most, which is because it has to tend to define and reflect the global system of what democracy is one is the limits. No country use a purely direct democracy. Most countries have some form of representative democracy like the US, so no app would be truly limits of the single limits or bad because we applications, extra critical thinking, learning, apply generics, cross-apply that. Third, top down teaching, nearest cruise, windows, people where discussions necessary, not important message, more direct recruit where discussions necessary, cross-apply the RBI and reasonability here, on the case. I often see this convention reason why the producer would put holes in his shields makes all the distance because it means that he'll be satisfied overall and doesn't actually view lands for legislation because he already got his revenge. And also means that it doesn't take out the second process advantage, which is conceded based on the signal that the plan sends to professors themselves. The fact that Duterte has signed this bill still means that in terms of the core politicians as well as the foreign investments, they still perceive that corruption is decreased and Duterte is actually actively taking this stance. That's the AP as well as Higher 630. I mean, it's a group that are arguments about investments increasing right now, but first of all, it's just taking out structural trends based on statistics, and since 90% of direct investment has already dropped since Duterte was president, which means our aggregating the advance is more long-term and prefer. That second, it doesn't actually address our concerns in terms of investment based on a holistic view. They just talk about investment in terms of roads and bridges, infrastructure, but that's just account for investment overall, which is crucial internally based on OBTF in terms of tech and innovation, how that forces the economy. They say all turn the cost of the cost of the arguments why it doesn't measure. Tax measures don't actually involve that issue, especially with the drug where itself does not mean that actually backs up these issues. India does not solve the arguments. We say South Korea, Philippines, China, as well as us Korea, and all these arguments are key issues. If it's not about Duterte, it's a question of how they back out these issues. Terminate impact was states tried to affirmative solve poverty in these instances of counterplan. No way that the solid process-based advantage is not about the state itself, but rather about Duterte, which means that it's key to Duterte passing the policy of 70% because he's the head of the state on these issues. Perm to both, perm to the counterplan, consult counterplans to means that the state picks should justify some interpretation because otherwise they don't actually allow, and so it links that also links to the DISAT itself because it just sends a signal that they are conceding cross-examination, they are connected to Duterte and how they send a signal which means there'll still be backlash against him. Either way, the counterplan itself doesn't actually address these issues. The other counterplan. Perm do both, perm to the counter, the cross-player West Evans is a better issue, especially in terms of the debate. The right to decide, including medical information about candidates, health knowledge, preferred evidence, which meta-NASA and global information public advantages are 11. Records of public the information names, official grand round meeting, the decisions, and information related to official topics not related to personal life, selective decisions, medical records, and elective officials, the concerns are not released, and system inevitable leaks are how it happens, simulation, and still access these records to the diagnosis networks, and also two kind of picture when each they make two function plus one leak, turn out states and calculates, and still solve which justifies why one area is key to check abuse and theory is better, not structural issues, they collapse any sort of issues on time. The last is that unique circumstances we have no reason to return link why it actually passes in terms of how Duterte was derailed. It's either way. It's also no link to firmness. It's just a hard fight, but that's something that Duterte is going to oppose it. Duterte also guts the medicine thing regardless. He's already angry at these attacks and there's no terminal impact to such thing, but the case turns this.
Okay. I have 4 minutes starting now. What was the second argument on the politics DA?
What?
What was the second argument on the politics DA?
The no link argument. Yeah. So in terms of like putting up the hard fight, your argument is about how like Duterte is going to challenge that, but like even the Canaris evidence is talking about how like Duterte may be like inclusive, but you'll actually put up a fight against it. You don't have any specific evidence, and it's your burden to prove that he's actually opposed to like whatever bill the plan passes.
Okay, it's my burden. Okay, that sounds good. affirms on the state's counterclaim?
Perm du lieu and perm du counterclaim.
Wait, what was the argument for
Would it be the
affirming?
province counterclaim?
Huh?
The
Yeah.
province.
What was the argument for affirming the counterclaim?
Like sovereign perms are good, especially in instances where like you've read a pick and a state's counterclaim and conditional, so we should probably get something reciprocal.
The order is the medical pick, which you don't, I mean, you just, wherever condo picks is loaded. The states, the provinces counterplan, agenda, the plan, the econ advantage, and then
I'm gonna need you to start that all over.
fine. Medical pick, wherever you have condo picks bad flood. Provinces counterplan, agenda politics, the first page of the AF, the second page of the AF, TA.
Plan, second advantage, TA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Alright,
We need anything new?
everybody good? Starting with condo picks. Condo picks bad. Cool. Kicking the counterplan, not going for a conditionality is good. 1 point is logical decision making. Proving that the counterplan is bad does not prove that the affirmative is good. Logical decision making is the biggest internal link in real world education because it allows us to actually have education. 2 point no impact. If you understood this argument at all in the 1 AR, then maybe you should feel comfortable voting on it. But he just sort of ranted about condo picks being bad because the 1 AR was hard for a little bit, but there's no actual word for why condo picks are bad. 3 interpretations without a text of the interpretation are bad because they could shift in the 2 AR to things like dispositionality solves your offense, which means without a text of the interpretation you shouldn't vote on a theory argument. 4 they've conceded reasonability from the 1 AR theory argument. They just say theory is not skewed, but they've conceded it is skewed because the 2 AR response to the counterintuitive will always be new, which means there you should be default to reasonability. Fifth conditionality is good to test the affirmative from all angles. They have to defend it from the left and the right multiple proposals, particularly since they have such a small affirmative, which they should be ready to defend. I should not be able to beat an affirmative in 1 night of preparation that you had for months to prepare for. The states. I did not go for the medical pick. I kicked it. The states counterplan. It solves the affirmative. There are a couple arguments. Subpoint is it solves the majority of their corruption advantage since it actually results in all of the provinces having elections. This is particularly key since federal elections are held in the provinces in the first place. I.e., if you're running for the main Congress, then you would be running in a specific province, which means it solves pretty much everyone except Duterte. They have to win a Duterte specific internal link, which I don't think they'll do in the advantage, which means the argument about perception doesn't apply independently. States revolt is that it turns their perception argument because foreign governments will perceive that the states themselves are revolting against Duterte's corruption, which means they would invest directly into the states, into those states in that form of infrastructure, which means there would be some form of economic growth because it'd be states backing up against him. The permutation do both. It links to that benefit, which the politics is. And I'm going for the perm to the counterplan. There's no severance permutations are bad because allow the one AOC to keep their advocacy, which means I can't read dissents against it empirically proven to this debate because it would wreck the politics dissent. They're not just because you ranted about conditionality as well doesn't mean you get to literally sever out of portions of the affirmative. The last argument is that it links to the dissent. This argument does not explain whatsoever. No, it doesn't, because it doesn't attack Duterte, but rather addresses corruption in general. Now the dissent. The impact of the dissent turns out always the case. It was functionally conceded. Some-point AIDS probability. The impact of the dissent is the AIDS epidemic in Philippines is worse. It is 7,000 deaths per year, which has a 172% increase. Which is a 170% increase. The bill definitively solves this impact, which means it outweighs on probability because it does things like provide free healthcare for people with HIV. Sub-point B is cyclicality. HIV always on cyclicality because it happens over time and repeatedly happens, whereas they don't really solve much of their corruption advantage, which I'll get to their offense, which I'll get to on the case page. Sub-point C is magnitude. The HIV crisis in the Philippines is literally one of the worst things ever. They don't really have any impact on the case, whereas a small risk of investors coming back in, which was never explained in the 1AR. You should be, which I'll get to in a couple seconds now. The line by line of the argument, I've already proven that the impact outweighs the case. The uniqueness debate, they say uniqueness overwhelms. Like, no, it doesn't. None of my evidence says that Duterte is sure to sign. It's just that it's going to Duterte to sign now. They're confident that Duterte will sign because he generally signs the bills, but all of my link evidence says that Duterte has refused to do so before now. The link debate, the affirmative was the link to this. They criticized Duterte. They said the plan is key to stop Duterte. They said he is in his opposition to policies. I have carted a 1EC piece of evidence that says Duterte is not really for good freedom of information laws. That takes out their no link because their no link explanation in prep time was that I have to prove that that Duterte is not necessarily in opposition to the plan. I have sufficiently proved that Duterte is in opposition to the plan. He doesn't want to give up the drug war. He doesn't want to give up his corruption, which doesn't matter. The last argument is Duterte guts the impact solvency. This is ridiculous. It was literally just those words. Duterte guts the impact solvency. He's never explained my cards on why the HIV bill is good. Definitely outrageous all of their offense. Now, the F on the plan. Kind of silly, I know, but they conceded this inherency argument, which the affirmative does not have inherency. The text of the affirmative is that the right to know ought to be valued above the right to know ought to be valued above the right to privacy, which the Supreme Court ruling already valued, even if their solvency evidence is about them passing a law. The text of the plan text is not inherent in the Philippines because the Supreme Court decision already ruled that. That's their own evidence. If this was conceded, you should protect the 2R from it. This was a well-warranted explained argument that proved that established it from their evidence. If they don't have inherency, they haven't made a stock issue in the affirmative. There's no reason to vote affirmative in the first place, which means their plan doesn't do anything. Now, if they concede that Duterte puts holes into the plan, means it doesn't solve corruption, which means they don't solve the econ advantage because it's the corruption that's causing investors to go away in the first place. Investors aren't just like, if Duterte does something against corruption, then we'll stop investing because Duterte already passed an FOI executive order that the 1EC criticizes for not being sufficient enough. If that is the case, then Duterte passing another law that has many, many holes in it, which they have conceded, would not sufficiently answer this argument. They've conceded a whole bunch of defensive advantage about how it's not going to all causes. Now, the econ advantage. Two top-level issues. The two top-level alt causes they've conceded is that one, their Heidegger 630 evidence has a tax returns alternative alt cause in the first couple lines of the evidence. The second is the inflation alt cause, which the Philippine inflation is high now. Their evidence highlights multiple alt causes, which means they don't solve any of the advantage. Now, the line by the advantage, they say there are structural trends that there is a 90% drop in investment. These are pledges. There are 90% drops in pledges. Those investments never happened. My evidence is much more recent. It's from October 19th, whereas their evidence is from the 6th month, whatever that is, sorry, sort of in a different mood right now. Their evidence is from whatever the 6th month is, but mine is from the October 19th, which is almost like a week and a half ago, which says that investments are up. They have consistently gone up from 381 billion to 454 billion. Now, there's almost no risk of disadvantage or no risk of it being unique, because if they are truly going for some econ try or die thing, they cannot have they cannot be fighting against a uniqueness trend of increasing it by 100 billion Filipino dollars, which is what my evidence says, which outweighs all their offense. They say try or die, and the perception of corruption stuff, this has already been roasted sufficiently by the rest of the 2R. You should default to explanation, and the 1R didn't have any. Now the RBI on T. You've conceded that 2R should be able to take whatever strategic out you want. You never answer this argument. This is outweighs all of your offense. Subpoint is probability. In every round that reads, the 2R should be able to take the strategic out on substance, particularly if you want to have a substantive in which you can cross-play all of your reasonability, counter rewards, topic and all of that stuff. Subpoint B is magnitude. 2R offense outweighs things like 2R strategy outweighs things like advocacy skills, and because it controls the internal link to them, we cannot have advocacy skills with 2R not able to go for the position it wants to go and have substantive attacks against the 1AC. That answers your advocacy skills argument, and it's also your advocacy skills argument was not warranted. You're just like you have to defend your interpretation. I did defend my interpretation, but you beat it back sufficiently. You're just like you can't not make an argument and then say it was wrong, which kills argument responsibility because we can never say we were wrong in the first place. The next argument is that if the TUR was actually abusive, I could just win it, but that's not the point of my warrant, which is that the 2R has to collapse to something and it shouldn't always have to be T.
Starting 45 seconds.
on case, counterclaim dissent. Everyone good? Alright. The lesson is basically you can't flip negative into an app when you do not have any sort of answers to cross-specific answers or conceded triad agreement as well as determinate impact scenario. You should presume affirmative in any sort of instance, especially when he's around counterpick in terms of action and alternative, which means if you can't vote negative on face default to looking for an app ballot on the question is process-based event. Today say inheritance versus materials and planting today. I've conceded this is blown up into an R. You should at least allow for new responses, but I've already answered this either way in terms of the intimate connections between how deterrents actually function in terms of policy as well as projected to or but rather the Supreme Court values, especially in terms of the new bill that actually resolve these issues because of how it actually is enforced right now. That this Canara subheat indicates that there's currently surveillance in terms of Duterte and how politically inconvenient, which means that is an internal link for why corruption happens right now in terms of Duterte's policies and the freedom of information laws, that in that executive order that is inadequate in terms of how it can be rescinded. It is not sufficient in terms of status quo. There's obviously a uniqueness claim here that they've conceded and do not have answers. So don't let them make a new to our answers on this issue. That second invention itself, they've conceded reasons why it takes out the disadvantage, and we've conceded circumvention in terms of putting holes in this bill. They say it doesn't actually solve a different instance, but we indicate that if he has this revenge that's gutted the bill, it means that it's sufficient to trigger the preceptor signals in terms of foreign investments. They don't keep track in terms of domestic politics, which is the AP part, but they do gut any sort of effective solvency, which means he has his revenge, is not going to put up a fight with just the bill itself. That it should be a conceded TKO on this argument, especially when it's not answering a permutation shields the link of this issue. The alt causes, they say tax and inflation, but they've conceded the DPOs as OBG evidence that indicates tech and innovations, unique investments in terms of what their evidence does not account for. It's about a holistic development in terms of 90% decrease, which you prefer evidence of 1% is a crucial internal link in terms of impact scenario, in terms of tech innovation and urban development in terms of healthcare, which turns the disat with how demand and labor in terms of poverty and actually solving these structural conditions that prerequisite to the disat itself outweighs. But second of all, also means that we have a better probability scenario because their statistics about billions is not taking into account the percentages based on 90%. They could literally be total of trillions of dollars, but when they've considered that investments themselves have already gone down, these pledges in the future indicate a predictive claim about uniqueness that they cannot win the permutation on the counterplan. They conceded permutation due buffing and links to the counterplan itself, especially with the disad, because there's a relationship between the state and the federal government that they have not actually addressed. States proves that there's relationships in terms of local elections, and their first argument proves the links to this. Everyone in Duterte is still going to address these issues. Independently, they don't solve the process-based advantage because, hey, Darian Evans specifically talks about how Duterte has to demonstrate policy predictability, which means foreign investment will track them and not the state, local governments. They say states will result in solid independently, but that investment is not in the same status or form, especially through Duterte's foreign policy. They have to look and operate through pledges because he is the face of the Philippines itself, and that is a conceded internal link argument off the 1 year. At best, the disad does not actually have any sort of weighing arguments, and they've conceded that there's no uniqueness. There's already failed in an that they don't have a link to why there is a hard fight. You can default affirm on this issue. There's enough questions with the inherency as well as the internal links, and you're on the disad. They can vote affirmative because the permutation do both shields a link.
Debate.
Good round.